Hello. Jenny Bowling here with Pivot to Prosperity, brought to you by Pivotal Real Estate Investments, where we help investors build wealth and income through commercial real estate that improves communities. And today our guest is Darcy Miller, or Marler. I shouldn't have said Miller. Marler. Sorry about that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. I love it.
Yes, well, you have a very interesting background, and so I am going to let you launch into that to introduce people to what you've been doing, and we've got some exciting things to share. So why don't you go right ahead?
That sounds great. Yeah, no, I've been in real estate investing for over 23 years now. Before that, I was kind of a computer guy. I lived and worked in South America. I actually met my wife down there. Came back, had some money to invest, and I didn't. I just was burnt out. Didn't want to see a computer again. So I said, you know what? I'm going to give this real estate stuff a try. I had a book given to me by my dad when I was 15 on investing. So yeah, now's the time. So I got into some flips and rentals. Over the years, I've done basically everything: long, short-term rentals, flips, burrs, condo conversions, and lots of development and new construction. I've had over 1,000 tenants. 240 doors, lots of flips and renovations. And yeah, I just got tired of renovating. I just got tired of dealing with older buildings. So I want to deal with new. I want to be creative. I want to build new. So basically now I focus on kind of real estate development, land development, new construction, build to rent, some paperwork strategies like entitlement only, lot severance, lot assembly. And I've written a few books, and I've also got a development course that I teach people how to get into this world too. Instead of the normal flips and rentals, let's get into new and develop some new stuff here.
Great. So tell us the names of your books.
So a couple. There's one, land development as a profitable investment. The next one is new construction as a profitable investment. Then I did another one. What's the best strategy for you? Like everybody. I've been watching, like I said, real estate education for 40 years now, and everybody there's kind of a pressure on newcomers to pick a strategy. Are you going to do flips? Are you going to do rentals? Come on, I got books to sell. And I like to coach people that, why don't you look at all the strategies and see which ones kind of match your personality so you can actually enjoy yourself. And so yeah, what strategy? It's a book about strategies, and I go through the pros and cons of all the strategies, what's good and bad. So you get kind of an objective look on that. And then I did one about cash management, cash flow, how to improve cash flow from rentals and that sort of thing. So they say when you write a book, you're supposed to write a book that doesn't exist. And I think all four of mine didn't exist before. So
Well, very good. And your qualifications to be writing that book about the bottom line was comes with a degree. You have a degree in accounting, I think you said?
Yeah, actually computers, but I majored in accounting. And so when I was an IT guy, I would help mid-sized companies with their accounting software. I was at one of my client while I was down in South America was I had a US-based oil and gas company based out of Houston, Texas. That was my main client. And I was installing the software there. At their places, I was in Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, and Brazil. So I traveled around a lot. So I loved it.
Very interesting. Well, we won't go into that. I mean, how quick those digits add up on oil and gas is probably pretty interesting.
Yeah. Actually, one of my main clients was they deal with mud. So the mud that you use, so basically they would rent mud. So it was basically mixing water and dirt, and then they'd rent it. They didn't sell it. They rented it to the client, and then they got it back and they rented it again. So an unbelievably profitable business model, just renting mud.
And what was the mud good for?
Well, you need mud to put down the hole when you're drilling to lubricate the bits and that. So it's and then they suck it out after and reuse it. So it's an incredible business. Anyway, that's
interesting. Mud with viscosity, I bet.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so tell us about your first project then.
So my first project in development was way back almost 20 years ago now. And so I had an old 1950s house that I was just going to rent to flip. I was a flipper back then. And the person next to me passed away. So I actually bought that house as well off the estate. And again, we're going to flip them both. But I said, you know what? I've always kind of wanted to try new construction. So I ended up moving the old houses off. Didn't even have to demolish them. I actually sold them to a house mover, moved them off. I split those 2 lots into 4, made sure all 4 lots had the utilities. And then I built 4 homes. So that was my first project. I'd never done anything like that before. So I thought that was
Terrific. Now, how did you handle the construction? Did you strictly hire it out or bring in a partner that does construction? What'd you decide to do there?
I did it all myself. I'd
Ooh.
never done anything, so they say God protects the innocent and the stupid. I'm not sure which one I was. Yeah, I was my own site supervisor, my own project manager. So I would go down every day and, make sure the trades were working. I was the guy that, coordinated the drop off garbage bin, and let's go down and negotiate a whole truckload of drywall. That was, like I said, totally didn't. And I don't recommend that to my students now. I say, no, just hire a builder. But yes, but anyway, that's how you learn. That's how
You live and learn for sure. And so you also say you have micro strategies within the land development world that you recommend. So can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, so what I found is that most people, when you just say land development, they kind of automatically just think big companies on the outskirts of town, urban sprawl. They're going to buy 300 acres and put up a few thousand tract homes. And I could never do that, Darcy. Well, I say, there's a lot more to development than that. Let's bring it down to our size, regular investor kind of size, just a normal city lot, a vacant lot, or an old house. Like, let's say a 1920 tear down. Instead of fixing them up, let's tear those down, and then we can deal with that. That's our size, right? So different strategies. There's kind of what I call paperwork only strategies. So we can change zoning, density, usage. We can, get a relaxation on height or something so we can build taller. Anyway, we can change the way the lot is defined by the town or the county or the state, whatever, and we can increase the value just by doing that. So we don't actually have to do any work on site. We can just increase the value by doing that and selling it to a builder or somebody else. So let's say it's currently zoned single family home. Maybe we upgrade it to allow fourplex, and then we can sell that. The next step would be, let's say our architect designs that actual fourplex. We get the building permit approved. Well, now I've got a shovel ready package to give to sell to a builder. And if it's a vacant lot, they can start building tomorrow. We can go further from that as well. We can sit there and do lot assembly. What if we've got this one tied up, but we knock on the neighbor's door? Now we've 250-foot lots. We've got 100 lots, or 100-foot lot. I can now put the paperwork and the planning together for a small apartment building or side-by-side townhouses. Again, I don't have to do any work on site. I can just kind of plan it and sell. Lot severance. I've got a lot that's larger than normal. I can cut that up. That 250s into 100. I can now cut that up into 520s or 425s or 333s. And I can then go the next step. If I wanted to, I can put the pipe in the ground like I did with my 4. I can then make sure all the lots are serviced. Now I can sell service lots. I don't have to build a house. I think what we're used to a lot of times in kind of the renovating the old building world, whether it's flips or rentals, is we have to finish. You can't have finish a flip and expect to make any money at it. You can't have finish a reno and expect the tenant to live there. So we're kind of used to, we always have to take it the full thing. In this world, if you imagine every house starts with grass and ends with a building, there's all these things that have to be done. We don't have to do the whole thing. We can just pick the paperwork part, or we can put the pipe in the ground, the utility pipes, and sell service lots, or we can actually go ahead and build that fourplex. You can do whatever you want. So that's, again, going back to what makes you happy. You can, I call it moving the needle. You just buy it in a certain status, this lot, and do some value add, and then sell it to the next person down the line. So it opens up all kinds of possibilities and tools in the toolbox, as I also say. So yeah, these are my micro strategies. If you think of land development and new construction being macro, we can drill down to these smaller micro strategies. And that's how smaller investors like us can get into development as well. It's not just for the big guys on the outskirts of town.
That is so true. And you and I both know, though, too, there is a lot of planning and zoning details that go into figuring out. You really have to do your diligence on this stuff. But so are you all self-taught on that? Or have you had, if you hired attorneys, zoning attorneys here and there, or what do you do normally?
Back when, like I said, 20 years ago when I started, there was no books on this. There was no courses. There was no YouTube even. And certainly there was no Darcy talking about this stuff. So it's all kind of self-taught, self-learned. So yeah, I delegate where I can now. And the other thing to your point about different zoning, geography is a big deal in this world compared to the rental or flip world, because we're adding new units, right? Before, if I'm just doing a flip, for example, there's one house before I fix it up, there's one house after. It's kind of a 1-for-1. Even mostly if you see new construction, they tore down the old house and just built one new one. Again, 1-for-1. Here we're taking a 20-acre vacant lot and we're going to create 80 new lots, or we take an old house, we tear it down, we build a fourplex, right? So there's a one-to-many. So you have to be in a place where that's the business model for that is good, where there are actually people moving in, where there's the demographics, there's the jobs. So you don't want to be in a place where, you know, they're boarding up Main Street. You need to be where those people are moving in. And then also there's a big difference around the country when it comes to how anti-development or pro-development a city or town or county might be. So there's places that'll approve your zoning application in 2 months. There's other places that'll take 2 years and everything in between. So as investors, we want to be in and out quick. So let's say we don't invest in the 2-year place. We stick to the 6-month place or less. And so, yeah, maybe in this development world, we've got to spend a little bit more time up front. I know our natural tendency as investors is we just want to go to MLS and start searching for the next deal. Here we've got to, you know, we've got to learn a little bit of upfront, like what is zoning and density, what is highest and best use, how do we increase the value of land? You know, traditionally we're taught the values in the building. We got to fix up the building. We get rich by value adding the building. Well, more and more with our aging inventory, the values in the land. So how do you increase the value of land? And then geographically, where are we going to invest? And so there's a little bit more upfront planning. And then you can start looking for your next project and go hard. But it's a little bit of thought has to go into it first.
Well, and there's so much to that really even applies to the value add people. I have the background in land use and zoning from doing eminent domain most of my life. And so I've argued that stuff with attorneys most of my career. And that people don't think about the road capacities and access and construction and all of that too, which I'm sure you have to get into when you're looking at what you're wanting to develop. And yeah, and some entities want road dedications and extract a lot of concessions.
And so other places are just not that there's no rules like that, but significantly less rules because they want you there, right? There's massive influx of people in this specific, you know, like let's say we've got foreign immigration coming in kind of record numbers, but there also is movement around the states, like domestic migration that we've never seen before too, like people moving from a California or New York or Chicago down to a Texas or Florida, the Tennessee or the Carolinas, you know, these kind of places. Those are the last places I talked about, you know, they've typically got no state tax. They're, you know, you can spend $3,000 a month on a little you know, a closet in Manhattan, or you can get a little mini mansion in Houston for the same amount. So we're seeing these massive movement, right? And so the various counties and cities are saying, yeah, we gotta, you know, so they're relaxing a lot of the rules and making it easier, increasing approval times. There's also something that doesn't exist in the flip and rental world. There's a lot of incentives, like governments of all 3 levels of government are sitting there with incentives to incentivize builders to build multifamily, or, you know, grants or rebates, or, you know, they'll make it easier to get a loan. So there's a lot of that's available in this development world that isn't available in the traditional investing strategies too. So a lot of this is coming together at a really good time. I think land development, new construction is the next big thing in real estate investing over the next 5 or 10 years, because, like I said, immigration and governments wanting this to happen, trying to densify, create inventory, and that's what we can do. So, you know, there's a supply and demand big mismatch in large parts of the country. So as small investors, we can do it.
So true. The housing shortage is felt greatly here in Florida and many places, and lots of incentives. In fact, have you done any projects in Florida at this point?
No, but I was just there a little bit ago doing some research. I was in, I gotta be honest, I like the Gulf side better than the Atlantic side. I just find the Atlantic side too hectic. You're just driving forever. I like kind of the laid back part of, the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Coral Springs, or
down by Fort Myers, right? Yeah.
By Fort Myers. There's
Hurricane Ian cleaned the slate down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's some new development new building strategies, building with concrete, ICF, these kind of strategies that I think are
That's
going to
exactly where I'm going to take this
rise out.
conversation.
There you go.
Trends.
Yeah.
Talk about the trends and what you see happening there.
So I think, because, like this ICF, which is basically you're building with concrete, so the walls are much more able to withstand, the hurricanes and that kind of stuff that come in through that part of the country and through Houston too, and Texas. You've got tilt up panels where these concrete panels are maybe manufactured off site and then they're just trucked in and just tilt them up. And I like modular, which is basically, if you can just imagine, it's almost like Lego. So we'll imagine an old age or a senior citizen's residence or a hotel, something where it's just cookie cutter. Each of the rooms is exactly the same. You can make each of those rooms in a warehouse, truck them into place, and then just stack them like Legos. Once they're on site, you can make the outside fascia, the however you want to finish it, and then you hook up the electrical and all the utilities inside, and the on-site work is significantly less. So you can significantly reduce the build time, or at least the on-site build time, by that. And I think it's going to be, I think that's going to be huge too, and a major thing in the future, because the younger demographics, they're not the kids aren't going into the trades as much as they were. So we're seeing the labor shortages and that. And so if you can just have a massive warehouse where they're just kind of cookie cuttering these building blocks, the electrician can just go from one house to the next house to the next one, all in the same building. There's no issues with rain or snow or wind or whatever. They don't have to drive across country to get to their next job site. So I think there's a lot of benefits from that. So I think that's the future as well.
Are you seeing those being built through robotics primarily?
It's part of that, but also I think it's just a lot of it is still manual, a lot of man-made stuff. Again, the benefit is that if I'm an electrician, like we're talking about Atlantic side of Florida, I might have a job, in Fort Lauderdale, and then my next job is, up in Boca Raton or whatever. So I got to travel all the way up there. So realistically, how productive are you, right? Where this way we're in the same warehouse, and I'm going to hook up this part of this house today, and I'm going to go right next door and walk 5 feet and hook up in the next building, and I can just boom, boom, boom. So very, much more efficient use of time and energy, and cut costs. They're also, I got a friend that actually is an architect for one of these firms, and he showed me the software. Typically when you do a blueprint, like you'll just show the bathroom and there's the tub and whatever. And then it's up to the actual, the plumber on site to know how many copper 90s or PEX we need to hook up that shower, whatever. They'll do it all in great detail, the heating and air conditioning, duct work, all that stuff. They know exactly, how many nails are in this. Basically, once they do that, they hit a button and they'll come up with a bill of material, like a job list of exactly how much of each type of material they'll need. They make sure everything's on site. So there's the worst thing they get is if they run out of material or something, and now there's this half finished house or room that's taking up space in the warehouse, right? So no, they gotta go. So everything's already before they start, they've got every single nail and copper 90 that they'll need to do whatever they need. So it's actually pretty interesting. But yeah,
Yeah, the computer age changed things a lot.
Yeah.
I was married to an old architect, right? I shouldn't say old, but yeah, the quantities and all that, it just, over the last 20, 30 years has been really 30, 40 years has been phenomenal. But right, yeah. And I think really one of the sleeper assets of this decade will be the modular housing.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot more big builders already here in America than I realized until recently. So I think that there's going to be an awakening here.
I was talking to this architect, and he said that in the United States, about 30 to 40% of the build is already kind of modular. Up in Canada, it's like 6 or 7%. Like they don't do very much of it, but it's coming. And in Europe, he said the first thought is always, how do we do this modular? So that's the default over in Europe. So
right.
Because they've been fighting the space problem for decades. How do we get more out of the limited space, where we've kind of been lazy in North America, where we just keep doing the urban sprawl and big houses and larger lots. So that's part of kind of what I I talk about too is let's kind of stop the urban sprawl. It's getting way too expensive for us as taxpayers to put in the new roads and the infrastructure to go out there, the schools, all that. Let's come back in, the 1940s and 1930s and earlier houses. They don't have any useful life left, and let's tear them down and then let's build a fourplex or a sixplex in its place, kind of revitalize the inner city, and come up with, because not everybody that wants to live in the suburbs. Lots of people want to live closer to the action. And so I think, again, supply and demand, I think we can.
Right. And you read my mind again. I wanted to get you to infill, because not only does that help better utilize the capacities that are already existing, but do you find that it's easier and faster to get, I'm assuming some places you go, you have an issue with capacity and you have to reserve capacity, and there's a bit of a timing element to that. Do you run into that much, or is that just where I've been?
Actually, what happens in general, and again, I say something and then someone will say, well, that doesn't happen where I work. But in general, what happens is, actually, let me back up a bit. So just a quick fact. So the average lifespan of a wooden structure in North America is 70 years and brick is 90. So that puts us in 1954 and 1934. Again, all we've been taught is how to fix up old stuff. But what if, anything 1950 and earlier, I'm not talking about historically or architecturally valuable buildings, but that's a very small percent. Most old crap is just old crap. So what if we tear that down instead, right? Instead of trying to fix it up, right? And so we're looking for communities that are basically where some developer in the 1940s, that was the outskirts of town, right? And so, but now it's old, right? So in a lot of cases, the capacity of the water and the sanitary system and all that was higher then because, we were closer to capacity then because that's when all the kids were there and the families were young. Now these older communities typically don't have the population than they had back when they were new. So that specific house, I'm going to tear down and build a fourplex. Maybe I have to upgrade the line, but in general, the community itself, the neighborhood itself, still has lots of capacity left because it was designed for more people than what living there now. So in general, that's kind of what I find.
All right. And so you're not having a lot of conversation with the cities on that kind of thing. It's more of it's there, it exists. So you're just really replacing the user for the lot and no real discussion.
Well, again, it depends where, but also a lot of times the discussion is, for example, in a lot of places in the 30s, they used clay for the pipe. The main drain pipe for the sewer, the water pipe coming in. I had one building. I was a rental. It was an old building, kind of a motel that I modified into a lower economic apartment, long stay apartment, and I got a leak. This water started bubbling up in the parking lot. So I bring in the backhoe and dig it up. And of course, there's this terracotta or soft clay pipe had broken. Right? Well, normally, to fix a broken pipe, you cut off both sides, you put a new sleeve in, lock her down, and life is good. The plumber would reach for the new piece, and it would just break off in his hand. He'd go and we just couldn't. We had to directional drill a whole new line, right? So those are some of the problems you might end up with if you're in, really old neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah.
But again, that's going to happen whether you, like I said, I was just burring that property. So, I mean, whether you're doing it as a burr or as a new, you're going to run into that problem. But again, most of the time the capacity is there. We just need to.
Right. Do you actually recommend, if it's the development from the 40s or likely to have those situations, just budget in to put new drain lines and whatnot in?
Typically what I do is maybe video or put the camera down to see is there, but again, you kind of should do that anyway with your flip just to see if the tree roots are cutting in or whatever, but just see what the quality is in that. But yeah, I used to be fix it up guy. Now I'm tear it down guy. So I basically 50, let's get it.
Well, so let me see here. Multiple entry and exit points available in development. You want to touch on that more specifically than what we already have?
So going back to the micro strategies, like I said, you don't have to do the whole thing. So let's just say, maybe if you want to build a fourplex, that's the part that turns your crank. Darcy, I don't want to worry about the permits. I don't want to put pipe in the ground. I just want to find service lots, and I want to build the fourplex. I like that. So now you're looking at this point. You're not looking for raw land. You're looking for something where somebody else has already created the service lot, right? So now that's a different entry point and a different exit point, where somebody else could, no, I just want to do what they call the entitlement or the upzoning strategy, where I'm just going to take something that's zoned single family home and I'm going to make it able to do a fourplex. I'm going to do that. That's my value add there. So lots of different entry points, lots of different exit points. And again, in and out quick. I wasn't a big fan. Like, I've had over 1,000 tenants and never enjoyed that journey at all. I've sold all my rentals now. But I never liked the tenant part, but I also didn't like, we're always taught you have to get a JV partner, and now you're going to be in bed with this person for 10 years owning this apartment building, and I barely know the guy. And so I like in and out quick. So can you, with these paperwork only strategies, maybe you're in and out in, 6 months or around that. I'm doing a service lot. I'm taking 5 acres and I'm going to put the utility pipes in the ground and split up the larger lot into smaller lots. I'm going to create an internal road. That's probably 1.5 to 2 years. If you're just going to buy land already there and build the fourplex, if the paperwork's already in place, physically building a fourplex is 8 months, 10 months kind of thing. So this allows for those of you that don't necessarily like the long aspect of long-term rentals or whatever, you want something quicker. This is a great avenue to get into that world as well.
Agreed. Yes. And we need more housing for sure. So again, that's, yeah, but whether it's infill or even on the outskirts, but so then let me ask you to tell us about your horse track and casino.
So where I live, there was a group, this is way back in the early 2000s, that the existing racetrack was built in the 30s or 40s, and a bunch of the rich horse owners are saying, we need a new track. And of course we get into, I wasn't involved in this part, but they started to go down the road of, they bought the land, and of course they got hubris kind of set in, and we're going to go big. And they hooked up with the largest or the best horse track designer in the world, which is a guy out of Philadelphia, it turns out. Who knew there was a thing, but that's a thing. And so we're going to have this massive thing. We're going to have residential development. They were in talks with Caesar's Palace to have like a Caesar's Palace type theater for there, so the Barbra Streisands of the world could show up, and the barns themselves were like $2 million each. These $1 million thoroughbred horses are going to come in from Arabia, so it got big too quick. And then we hit the '08 recession, and it kind of kicked everything. And the group actually went into creditor protection or chapter 13. And so I was brought in to kind of help out. I'm kind of a turnaround guy. And so I got them out of chapter 13. We partnered with another group out of Austria, actually, that a gaming company that's listed on the NASDAQ. So they provided the funding. I sold the land and then leased it back to raise money. And so I kind of did all this stuff. We went from $100 million in debt down to about a reasonable 25 or so. And we got this racetrack and casino built. And so I'm part owner of a racetrack. I'm still on the board of directors. So it's that was actually pretty cool. Yeah.
And where's it at?
It's in Canada, actually. Yeah. So just in Calgary. So it's called Century Downs.
I was just going to ask Century Downs. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look it up. That sounds fun. So when you said you sold the land, was that like a syndication almost, where you brought in investors and put it into an entity?
Basically, no, what happened was, so there's 3 parts. We had to get out of the chapter 13. We had to figure out who's going to run the casino from the gaming standpoint. So there was no problem there. Lots of people were there. Lots of gaming companies wanted that, but there was a fear that, well, at Darcy, I don't want to make $10 million a year profit in the gaming side, but lose $4 million on the racing. So we had to kind of show them that the government had some incentives to because you want to save the rural jobs of farming and the people that actually train the horses and grow the wheat and the straw and the hay. You need all those kind of jobs. So basically, we got a percentage of the take from the casino because we were this racetrack as well. So I could show that there's the model works. Like you'll make money here. And turns out it was actually everybody thought I was too gung ho, and then I was just spouting rainbows and daffodils of how great it was going to be. But actually, reality is actually greater than even I thought. So it's actually been quite successful.
That's a very cool story. Yeah, nice, nice. Well, so okay, and I know we're coming up on the hour here. I would like to ask you what I ask all the guests, and that is there a pivotal person or event that has affected you or does today that you would like to recognize as something that's been good or bad, but as your pivotal event or person?
Yeah, actually, my father, because he's the guy that gave me my that book when I was 15 on how to do investing in real estate, and I didn't do anything really with it until I was in South America from 1996 to 2001 as an IT guy. Got fed up, didn't want to see a computer again. I got burnt out. So I came back home and said, you know what, I'm actually gonna do something with this. So I started doing flips and rentals and burrs and all this stuff. And my dad, back when I was a teenager, he was a farmer and he wanted to get into real estate, but he never did. But we would go and we'd look at potential properties, and then I'd go home and this is the mid 80s, early 80s, so I'd key it into the computer that I had, and that kind of got my computer interested in computers. So we kind of bonded like that. And then as I became a real estate guy full time and started to kind of play at a higher level, he loved my stories. Some of the renovations that I did were just kind of the before picture was just disgusting, right? So I had uh, apartment buildings that had fire damage and hoarders and cat lady. And I had one that, there was mushrooms and grass growing on the carpet. So, but he just loved my stories. So he never did end up investing in real estate, but he lived vicariously through me. So actually, as my dad, it was quite pivotal.
Your dad, what?
My dad was actually quite the pivotal one that got me into this.
Great. That's so cool. And is he still living?
No, he's passed now.
Oh, that's a shame. But yeah, at least he got to see that.
Yeah.
Right.
Those stories, with like I said, the hoarders and the mushrooms and grass, and I'd take him to see it, and how are you going to do this? So it was pretty cool.
That's super. All right. Well, very good. Well, and you have a course. Why don't you touch on the course and tell people how they can reach you? And we'll put all this in the show notes as well.
Good. So yeah, to get in touch with me, just the best way to do it is just my website is darcymarler.com. So you can see my spelling, all one word, no all lowercase. So darcymarler.com. Yeah. So I saw that there was kind of a void in the education world. As I said, I've been watching education on real estate for 40 years, and it's all just flips and rentals and burrs and wholesaling. And there's not a lot of people talking about this development world. So how do we come back? What do we do with a vacant lot? Most people, I need a house. I add value by the house. I don't know what to do with land, or I don't know what to do with that really nasty 1910. Most of your fellow investors will just drive to the next one, right? So how can we deal with that? Again, knock it down and come back. So I teach all the different strategies that I talked about, the upzoning, how to create a shovel-ready package, lot assembly, land assembly, build to rent. So let's say you want to continue in rentals, but you're tired of fixing up those 1930s pieces of crap. Let's have a newer portfolio. How do we do that? Lots of benefits from having newer tenants in the rental, all the way up from, a single lot. How do we service that? And what do we do with that? All the way up to, 20, 50 acres. I've done large developments as well. So anywhere in that cycle, I can get you
That's
going.
exciting.
That's
It
your
is
dream.
very exciting.
Yeah.
And you started out very brave from the get-go to jump into the construction yourself from the very first one.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about. Yeah, I'm not in one of my books I say, yeah, you don't actually want me swinging a hammer. So I'm more of a project manager guy. But yeah, like I said, now just hire the builder to physically do that.
Right, right.
Think of yourself
Well,
more as an investor.
and so part of why I interview people like yourself too and whatnot is there's always potential for us to be partnering on different things. And in fact, I do want to talk to you about a particular property after we go off the air. But so thank you so much for coming on. And we will be airing this within a few weeks. And so I appreciate it very much.
No, I've had a lot of fun. This was awesome. I love doing this.
Well, good, good. Well, thank you again. We appreciate it. You
Very
take
nice
care.
to meet you. Take care.